now.
Okay.
So just maybe Paul, why don't you suggest what you want our attendees to do
Sure.
to unmute, chat, Q&A or whatever. I'll leave that up to you, okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Attendee count is going up. I can see here. All right, we should have everyone on, so I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, well, it looks like we're ready to get ready, folks, or we're ready to get going here. Good morning, everyone. I am Pat Sang from Cushman & Wakefield and current chair of BOMA Greater Minneapolis. I want to take just a moment to thank today's sponsors. Clean Response is your one-stop shop for disaster restoration and for fire and water damage, mold, and trauma scenes. They pride themselves on delivering the safest and most efficient methods for structural dry downs, document drying, content restoration, and mold remediation. We are grateful to Tom Clares and Clean Response for their continued sponsorship of our events. Since 1988, Metro Paving has been dedicated to quality work, competitive pricing, and performance with the least amount of disturbance to your customers or clients. Whatever your project is, driveway construction, parking lot repair, replacement, or a stamped concrete patio, call Mike Newcomb at Metro Paving to get the job done right. Kevin, do you want to give us a rundown on today's fabulous events?
Sure. Thanks, Pat, and hello, everybody. Kevin Lewis, and it's been a long time since I've seen many of you. Did get a chance to visit with several at our golf outing earlier in the week, and we're really all excited about getting back to some sort of normalcy where we can see each other at these particular meetings and at our social events. Speaking of events coming up, unlike normal election years, our attention has been really redirected because of the pandemic and a lot of the issues around the death of George Floyd and so on. But there's some substantial elections, probably the biggest elections in years coming up this November, presidential, Senate, etc. Well, to address that and to arm you with as much information as possible, on October 22nd at 9 a.m., we're going to have a virtual group together to talk about the elections coming up and so on. And some of these panelists are familiar to you. Todd Rapp has some really interesting data on how elections have gone in the past and what states have switched over and different patterns and all that. So he'll give us a little bit of a educational background on it. And then our friend Tom Hauser from KSTP News, he's the political reporter. Brianna Bersbach, who is a political reporter for the Star Tribune. And then our very own Mr. Douglas Carnival will be moderating it as well. So I did see a little clip there of all the folks that are going to be in the election. So please register. Registration will open next week online, so look for the link in the Connect ad. And then on Wednesday, October 7th, that's coming up, our Engineers Association will present a webinar titled Combating COVID-19, MEO Solutions for a More Resilient Post-COVID World. Topics range from highly sustainable plumbing fixtures to high performance filtration, ultraviolet lighting, bipolarization to help combat airborne contaminants and so on. We got a great panel. Our presenters are Jeff Clark and also Lance Kemp, project manager. So this is on everyone's top of mind. So if you get a chance to register again, Wednesday, October 7th for our engineers. And then to get into the little social aspect of things, for those that have Jägermeister sitting around there, I don't think I have any here, but anyway, our events committee and Emerging Leaders Council has an Oktoberfest trivia social on Thursday, October 8th from 4 until 5. This is a great opportunity to network virtually, have a little fun, and celebrate Oktoberfest. So join us for this networking and some games. Winners will receive gift cards donated by our pals at Clean Response that will be from restaurants within the Midtown global market. The October Social Partners with our Emerging Leaders Fall Volunteer event in support of the Midtown Global Exchange, where many food vendors have been struggling. We all know that. On Wednesday, October 14th, the council encourages our BOMA members and friends to order lunch or dinner at any of the vendors within the market. Please do that. It's our small way of how we can help those that are struggling. Again, more information will be shared in next week's Connect Ed. And looking even into 2021, the planning is underway for our Best of BOMA Gala, which is on February 18th. Yes, it will be held virtually. I think most of you know that now. We will have you have to mix your own cocktails. And if you want to wear a suit or a dress or something, that's okay. We're going to try to have as much fun and have it as a professional presentation as possible. And I think we have 14 buildings in the Tobies, believe it or not. It's the most since I've been here. So we're looking forward to the building competition and the individual competition. The sponsors have been remarkable in saying we're still going to commit to this event in 2021. So again, all that'll be on our website. Now let's get to today's presentation. By the way, we have been approved for 1 CEU on this, and we will be recording Paul's presentation. Speaking of Paul Patrica started Torque Consulting after nearly 40 years in sales, consulting and customer relation roles in the high-tech and real estate industries. Hey, he's one of us guys. He had no choice but to venture out on his own to reach a wider audience for others to seek long-term, mutually beneficial and trust-based relationships in their professional and personal lives. I think he's got a background in JLL and some others, but Paul has a BS in marketing from Illinois State University and an MBA from Loyola University. He has spoken at BOMA International and many other BOMAs. So what he's going to be talking to us about will certainly resonate through all of us. Now, I usually say, and let's have a round of applause, and there's a huge thundering applause, but short of that, please welcome Paul. Paul, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Pat and Christine and the rest of the folks at BOMA Minneapolis. So before we get going, this is the first time that I've done this through a Zoom call. I've done this in a webinar format for Coronet Global, but this is the first time. So I don't actually see people's pictures, so it's like a leap of faith that that you're out there. And so this ought to be interesting. I'm not sure why I don't see your faces, but I would encourage you, because part of getting the CEU credit is that the session be highly interactive. And so this seminar, this hour will be highly interactive, and I'm asking for your help to come off mute, stay on mute until you have something to say. And then when you have something to say, please come off mute so we can see you and hear you. Turn your video on if you would like, but definitely would like to hear you. Or I've got a big screen in front of me that I have the chat feature up. And so as we go through this, I'm asking questions. Please feel free to ask questions through chat, and I'll do my best to convey those to the rest of the group and also to answer your question. With that, I do want to also say that when we were preparing for this, the folks at BOMA Minneapolis mentioned that kind of your theme is rebound and recovery. And I just think that's fantastic. I think with what's happening with the pandemic and all the other issues in our society right now, rebounding is a positive thing. I think we are on the rebound. And are we recovering? I do think we're recovering, and it's going to be a process. So I tip my cap to BOMA Greater Minneapolis for coming up with that mantra. I think it's really important and a positive message for all of us. So let's go ahead and kind of jump right into this. So as you can see, some pictures of some celebrities on the screen, and I'd love to ask a question of you. Kind of what's their image? So let's start easy. Let's start with Shaquille O'Neal. We won't go through all of them, but what's Shaquille O'Neal's image? So either type it in the chat feature or come off mute. What's his image? Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, he's friendly. Thanks, Adele. He's a friendly guy for sure. He's a really successful person. Yeah, he's a businessman. He's a business person, competitive. I think he owns like 50 hotels and restaurants. Yeah, happy, successful, energetic. You guys got it. Yeah, absolutely. vibrant. He's just got one of those personalities. His image is awfully positive. I think you have to really dig deep to find a negative thing to say about him. Yeah, go Tigers. He's from LSU. How about, okay, let's get this out of the way right now. How about George Clooney? What's his image? Go ahead. Come on, ladies, just go ahead. What do you think? Yeah, suave, right? For sure. Handsome, good looking, ladies man, charisma. Wait, are you talking about me? Or are you talking about George Clooney now? Yeah, his best role was a hillbilly. Yeah, my wife loved him in that movie too. Yeah, really successful person. So the reason I show you this is because, yeah, these people, for the most part, have positive images, or they have an image. I wanted to make the point that it's easy for us to have our image change. So for example, Tiger Woods, he's a perfect person on here. Tiger Woods, when he was first winning golf tournaments, I think most people wanted him to win every single tournament that he entered. I know I was that way. I would watch his tournaments and I'm like, I hope Tiger wins. But then he had some personal issues, right? And it bled into his professional life. And then his public image really took a hit. And I was one of those people. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to see Tiger Woods win another tournament, right? So, but then he changed his image again. Tiger Woods came back. He got some personal help, some professional help. He worked on his golf game. And now I think the majority of golf fans or people who know Tiger Woods, they're rooting for him again to do well. So it's a great illustration of how we could be perceived positively. Our image could be positive, and then it could change almost overnight. And so kind of keeping tabs on what our image is, I think, is really important. That's the purpose of of our time together today. So let me ask you a question before we do a little poll. Why do you think people like us? So go ahead in the chat feature or come off mute, please. Why do you think people like us? What do you think? What do you think they like? Yeah, perceptions for sure, Crystal. Absolutely. How we make them feel. Awesome. You guys are good. Thank you very much. This is going well so far. Trustworthy. Yeah, I love trust. In my longer workshops that I've done for BOMA and others, we talk about trust all the time. Being genuine, approachable. This is all good stuff. These are all great answers, but they're all the wrong answers. No, I'm just kidding. So we're going to do a little poll here, and I'm going to give you some options. And so let's go ahead and do this poll, and hopefully this works. Let me go ahead, and if I can go to our first poll, bear with me. So the first one is, why do people like us? And so you have three options. You have three options: what we say, how we sound, or how we look. So if you take a second, and if you can go ahead and cast your vote, I would appreciate it. Okay. Wow, look at this. Okay, interesting so far. I'll give you just another 64 out of the 84 people. And by the way, thanks for taking time today to join us. This is, it's important for us, and you'll see as we go through this, important for us to come together. Yes, we're not face-to-face, but I'm going to try and make this as intimate and interactive and as personal as possible. So let me go ahead, and I think we're just about done. Most people have voted, and I'm going to end the poll in 5 seconds. So if you haven't voted, please do. And I'll end the poll, and now I'll share the results. So here are the results of the poll. I think you can see them. Tell me if you can't. So 69% say what we say is the most important, then 28% how we look, and 18% how we sound, or how we sound. So let me show you what surveys have concluded. So let me stop the sharing. And so surveys have shown that, let me make sure I'm back here. What we say is 7%, how we sound is 38%, and how we look is 55%. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's such a discrepancy between your poll and what the surveys say, what the experts. Yeah, first impressions, Emily, I think for sure. Yeah, first impressions, whether we like it or not, people judge us by our appearance. I'm sure when you first saw body language, yep. When you first saw me, you probably made some judgment about us. Yeah, we like to think our appearance doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Yeah, so interesting point here. When I do webinars, or this is the first time I've done a Zoom webinar or Zoom call with this content, it's typical for the results to be the total opposite of the surveys, and yours was no exception. You say what we say should be the most important, where what we say in this survey was the least important. And so how do you reconcile that? And so let me give you my thoughts on this. And I teach college, and so I do this poll with my students. And I think what the issue is, I think this is what we want the world to be. We would love the world to judge us by what we say and not how we look. And so I think that's probably one of the answers. The other answer is obvious, that we're not together, and maybe you're on your phone and you're not seeing me and you're just hearing me. And so I think the answer that I'm hoping for is, this is what we hope people want, is a place that's importance on is how we sound. So yeah, thanks for that. So let me add one more question. How do these people convey, how about Morgan Freeman? How does he communicate his image? For those of you who know Morgan Freeman, he's a good example. How does he communicate his image? Yeah, right, Ted. He's his voice, for goodness sakes. He was the voice of God in a meeting. So absolutely his voice. Now, ironically, Morgan Freeman a few years ago was another person who had a great positive image, and then he had some social things happening in his social life that people started to perceive him negatively. And thankfully, because I like him, those kind of went away or were disproven. But you can see how the things we say, how we communicate, things we do in our personal lives can really impact our image. So let me just give you 2 seconds on me. As Kevin introduced me, thank you for the introduction. I have spoken to a number of BOMA groups, and I spoke at BOMA International 2 summers ago, which was a lot of fun. You can see me there, and I'm also a college professor. I teach at Wheaton College here in Chicago, the Chicago area, undergrad there in the MBA program at Loyola. And so I love to teach, and as a matter of fact, a lot of my content that I do in my professional life now, my corporate training, comes from my college classes, which I think is great. You can see me there. Also, I'm a college softball and baseball hitting coach, and I love to do that. I'm the hitting coach for Roosevelt University here in downtown Chicago, and I just love baseball and softball hitting. And there's me. I actually wrote a book in 2017 on hitting called Hitting with Torque for Baseball and Softball Hitters. And if you'd like a free copy, you can contact me on LinkedIn or get my email. I'm happy to send you a free copy if you have a baseball or softball hitter. That's me. I'm just a really bad selfie. I got to learn how to take selfies better. So I want to let you know too, that in my professional career with JLL, I started in property management. And I was in property management for 9 or 10 years. But then I had several other roles with JLL. Ending with a client role in our national client team. And that's how I came up with a number of the concepts and ideas and tips and tricks that I talk about in my seminars. So I've done your job. I love property management. I always steer a number of my college students into the world of property management because I just think it's a great way to learn the business. So enough about me. So what we're going to do today is a little different. And so I'm not sure what exactly you were expecting, but as soon as I left JLL, they asked me to do a workshop for them, an hour seminar for people in their project development management group, like 200 people. But they didn't want me to do any of the material that I had already developed that I was teaching internally at JLL. And they said, you know, Paul, we would love you to come up with an hour and talk to us about when to text, when to send an email, when to have a face-to-face meeting, when to send a personal note. And I'm like, well, that sounds interesting, but I don't know, it seems pretty basic to me. So I did it. I put together an hour, and try to make it as entertaining and interactive as possible. It turns out to be one of the most fun seminars that I do, because I believe that how we communicate using these different communication vehicles will dictate whether people like us or dislike us. It'll dictate what our image is to certain people. So what I'm going to do is I actually have a list of tips for texting and emails and phone, and I'm going to read to you these tips, and then I'm going to ask you for your thoughts on it. Maybe you've got some tips too. And there's a method to my madness. And by the way, when I give you these tips, you're probably periodically you're going to go, well, duh. And that's okay. Some of them are pretty obvious, but I would appreciate if you wouldn't come off mute and say the word duh. That would hurt my feelings, or don't put it in the chat function, okay? That'll hurt my feelings too. But some of them would be obvious. And again, we're going to start with texting, okay? And I'm going to start over here, and texting is here, and you'll see why I'm starting here, and then I'll move across the screen. So let's get going. So texting, here's some tips for you. Only text when there's an established relationship. Okay, duh. Keep your messages simple. Yeah, that's kind of duh. Be clear and specific to avoid misinterpretation. Okay. Text timing can blur the personal or your professional life. Absolutely. You don't want to be texting at midnight to a client. By the way, before we go much farther, why don't you go ahead and just tell me, do you like to text for business? So people text in our personal lives, but typically property management folks or people in asset services have an opinion on texting. Could you just in the chat, yeah, Emily is no, exclamation point, minimum. Yep. Hey, Todd Balsinger, good to have you join us, one of my good friends. Look at all the no's. If you see the texting, yeah, a lot of no's, a couple yeses. It turns out, and I think this is a credit to property management and asset services people, that you like face-to-face interaction, I believe, or you think texting is not very professional. It's not uncommon for when I do this in front of property management or asset services to be adamant about, no, we don't like to text to clients. Now, internally, for sure, yeah, Ted's saying, yeah, internally for team communication makes sense. But Melissa, not with tenants, right? I just thought that was interesting. Other workshops and seminars that I do, people I say, no, we text our clients, we do it all the time, and it seems a little foreign to me, but I wanted to ask that question of you. Never text confidential or sensitive information, okay, through a text for sure, and try to end the conversation gracefully. So I had a theory. Well, first of all, I'm one of those guys, maybe you are too, that you don't know how to end the conversation, where if someone says, okay, thanks, Paul, and I'll say, no, thank you. And they'll say, great. And then I'll go, oh, great. So I'm always the one that has to have the last word, until someone said, well, if you put a period at the end of your text, that means the conversation's over. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've run that by my college classes, and they say absolutely not. They say putting a period is rude. You shouldn't use a period. That you should use an emoji, like a thumbs up, or some sort of smiley face to end the conversation. So end the conversation gracefully. Also, while we're talking about texting, we'll move on quickly from texting. You know those 3 dots on an Apple, on the iPhone? I hate those 3 dots, because if I'm having a text conversation with someone, and then I say something, or I text something, and then I see the 3 dots, right? The 3 dots, they're going, they're alternating, and then they just go away. I think that's so rude. People think I'm weird about that, but I don't know. Some people, I don't know. Are you the same way? When you see those 3 dots, you're expecting a response, and then they go away, and you're like, what were you going to say? Sometimes I'm a knucklehead, and I actually then send another text. Yeah, Cheryl, you're the same way. I'm like, were you going to say something else? And people say, no. So anyway, I don't like the 3 dots. And then know when it's time to end the text stream and send an email, pick up the phone, or meet face to face. So we're going to move quickly through texting, because that's kind of this new school. Everybody's doing it. any tips or any thoughts that you have that you would like to share with everyone about texting before we move on? Pretty straightforward. Okay, let's keep moving. So now it's email. So I'm going to give you some email tips. And this gets a little bit more, hopefully more thought-provoking for you. And hopefully you can learn a couple tips and tricks. And remember, the purpose of this exercise is because how we communicate with people, people judge us. They judge us the way we text. They judge our emails. And so emailing. Who puts the action required at the top of the email, in the body of the email? What I mean is, instead of, like in sixth grade, I think in sixth grade, I learned how to write a form letter where you have an introductory paragraph, and then you kind of ask what you want, you try to be persuasive, and then, or you justify it, and then at the bottom you ask what you want. And with emailing, I'm convinced now that the best way to do this is put the action required in the text, in the body at the beginning of the email, because people are really busy, right? And they get tons of emails, and they don't want to read through your email to figure out what you're looking for. And so right now, if I would like to meet with someone next week for lunch, I'll put that right at the beginning. I'd love to meet with you next week for lunch, and then tell them why, and then maybe at the end, do that, then remind them or make plans, specific plans. Yeah, Cheryl, thanks. Cheryl Wright said she tries to include that in the subject line. Absolutely, because again, people are busy. So let's talk about the subject line. Make the subject line searchable, for sure. So that way, people, when they look at that, they know what the purpose of it is. Sometimes people don't take enough time, I don't think, actually thinking about what the subject line should entail. And also, when the subject changes in the conversation, change the subject line. I've received so many emails, or periodically, I should say, it's June, and I still have a happy holidays, email going, or subject line in my inbox, or I'm getting emails that way. So change the subject line. Subject is pretty easy to do that. Use email when the topic is specific or the subject is informational. Okay, kind of duh. So Cheryl, you might ask this: who puts a response needed in the subject line? Anyone put a response needed in the subject line? Yeah, Deb says she does. I don't think enough people do that. Ryan Moore, hey Ryan, good to see you here. I don't think enough people do that, and people think it's rude to put that in there. Yeah, I request something by Friday at 3 o'clock. I think it's being courteous, because people get a lot of emails, appreciate when they can see that, oh yeah, you know what? I needed to get that response by a certain time to that person. And so it's good to do that. If you're not doing it, think about it. Now, you can't do it every time, because people then will think you're rude and you're being bossy. But I think if you put that in the subject line, a response needed, that's good. Yeah, Ann says she uses the urgent button. Yeah. Anyone else do something interesting when it comes to requesting a response? Okay, how about this one? In the to line. So when let's say you've got 10 people. Yeah, action required is great, Jennifer. In the to line, if you've got 10 people you're sending an email to, do you prioritize somehow who's in that to line? So 10 people from your company or 10 clients, whatever, do you prioritize by seniority or alphabetically? What do you do? I'm just curious. Melissa says by seniority. A lot of people do that. Seniority and title. Some people don't do it. Some people don't think about it. I think it's more subliminal. Although now that someone mentioned this to me, when I get an email and I'm like number 3 of 7, I'm like, what the heck? Why am I number 3? I should be ahead of him. He's number 2. So no, I don't do that. But think about how you prioritize the people in your to line. Of course, making sure that the right people are in the to, CC, and BCC. Yeah. So Jennifer says, no, randomly list them, but I get very upset when I'm CC'd in line, yet the email is addressed to me. Absolutely. So there's an example. Jennifer says, I get very upset when I'm in the CC line. So I'm sure, Jennifer, you don't throw a tantrum, but you see how the little things that we do and the way we communicate can change people's perceptions of us. And that's the purpose of this. How about this one? I got this from a young woman in one of my, as a matter of fact, in the BOMA International seminar that I did. And she said, Paul, never use the word just. I thought about it. Never use the word just when I'm writing anything, especially in an email. Why do you think that is? Give me your thoughts on that. Why do you think you wouldn't use the word just? What do you think? Any thoughts on that? I'll wait just a second. Yeah, Nicole, it's defensive. I think you're on the right track. Yeah, it's defensive. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Yeah, fantastic. Renee, you and Nicole, you've nailed it. It makes it seem unimportant. It diminishes you. It diminishes your message by saying just. You don't just want that promotion. You want the promotion. You just don't want to meet with me. You want to meet with me. And so I'm very intentional now, and I love to write, that I don't use the word just. And if I do, I take it out. So although sometimes, and you may catch me, sometimes I actually will say the word just in the seminar, and people will raise their hand and they'll say, ah, you just said the word just. And so I'm still learning. So don't use the word just. Please write short paragraphs with a line in between, so people can see the changes in your thoughts. We had a captain, one of our softball teams, we sent an email out for captains to nominate themselves. And we had an email from 3 of our young athletes, student athletes. And one of them was so well written, articulate. It was fantastic, compelling, persuasive, but it was all one paragraph. And we told her, we said, you know what? And we named her captain, but we let her know that it was distracting for us because it was just one long paragraph. And so even that can affect our opinion of people. So use short paragraphs with line in between. How about this one? Avoid attachments. Avoid attachments if possible, because again, people are busy. People don't have the time. Sometimes they're on their phone. It's tough to open that PDF, where they click on it, then you got to click on it again. So if possible, and I'd love for you to put in the chat line, if you do this, to embed an if you can, embed an attachment into the body of your email. So if it's a one-page document, embed it in the email. So for me, I used to, I have this marketing brochure. I'll frequently embed pictures and screenshots, a marketing brochure, and I would attach it and no one was opening it until I decided it's just a one-pager. So I've started embedding it in my emails, and now people can click on it. They can print it separately. You can do screenshots. So if your attachment's too long, if it's 30 pages, maybe take a screenshot of a couple of the most salient pages. Or worst case, have some checkpoints or some bullet points on why they should open the attachment. So just think about that. If you're not embedding things, I think it's good to do that. Plus, it's easier again to read, especially on your phone. A couple more on email, and then we'll move on. Don't take the bait, okay? Without a cooling off period. So if you want to tell me what you do in the chat room, some people type the email and then walk away. Some people don't put the to and CC in their email until they're ready to send it. Some people just write it and then delete it. But the key is to have some sort of cooling off period. Don't send that rude email. And then a couple more things about type it to myself and then delete. Good, Renee. Don't add names. Yep, walk away and reassess. Good stuff. Save it as a draft for the next day. Type it in Word first. I love that, Cheryl. So don't even put it in the email. Type it in Word and then put it in the email. Fantastic. 2 more thoughts. How do you end your emails typically? How do you end them? Do you put sincerely, best regards, yo? Emily says, thank you. Adele says regards. Brad is thank you. So I'm going to tell you the thank yous have it. Studies have shown, study after study after study are showing that writing thank you at the end of your email or a letter, people like you more. You can also put thanks, but it's a little more slang. It's not as effective. So thank you is the way. So for me, even if I say thank you for meeting with you this week, and then I talk a little bit more, I'll still put thank you at the end. And one more thing, If you put thank you in the subject line, if it's appropriate, studies show that the open rate of your emails will go up like 20 to 25% by just using the words thank you. Yeah. And then finally, how do you start your email? And again, some companies now have corporate policies that it should be hi, Paul, as opposed to just Paul. They're finding that Paul is a little too stern, that you should say hi, Paul. So another little tip. So thoughts from you? Anything you want to add? Any tips that you want to put in the chat feature? And again, I'm not sure why we can't get people coming off mute, but that's okay. This is working fine. Any other thoughts on, or your tips? Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, Cheryl. Absolutely, that's personal. That's very nice. I think that works. Yes, I like that. I'm seeing that more and more. Always use the person's name as opposed to just hi, or if you're not sure how to start it, you just go right into the email. And I think that's a little rude. My college students do that. And so I then tell them, just use my name. It's easy. Yeah, call after a few emails. Don't keep a chain long. All right. So I have this blue line down here for a reason. So texting is here. And then there's email here. And now we're going to talk about using the phone. Okay, so that's a great segue, Ann. Thank you. So using the phone, here are some reasons why you should use the phone. First of all, and again, that blue line means it's a differentiator. It's a differentiator. I preach to my college classes, I preach to my corporate audiences, and I'm going to preach to you that texting is new school. Emails is new school. Using the phone is kind of old school. It really is, but it's a differentiator. So here's some reasons to use the phone. To fully explain a complicated situation, good or bad, pick up the phone. When you anticipate many questions, pick up the phone. Just like that, instead of going back and forth in email. When your response is long overdue, I just got this from someone, pick up the phone. Sometimes we get emails that are lost and we don't respond. Or sometimes, if we're being honest, and I'm being honest with you, sometimes I ghost people, which I shouldn't. I actually wrote an article on LinkedIn about ghosting and how it's really terrible when we ghost people. So if I've ghosted someone unintentionally or intentionally, what I'll do is I'll pick up the phone now and I'll say, you know what, you sent me an email about a month ago. My bad. I should have responded. And that's why I'm picking up the phone to talk to you in person. Accept my apology. It goes a long way. Just to discuss a personal or sensitive situation, pick up the phone. When there's a sense of urgency, pick up the phone. When finding the right emotional tone is difficult in an email, pick up the phone. I can send I love to write, and I think I can craft a very compelling and persuasive email or personal letter, but they can't feel the emotion. It's not like if they're hearing my voice on the phone or if we're face to face. Pick up the phone. It resolves debates quicker than email. And then I had a student, she said, Mr. Petrika, sometimes they call me Dr. Petrika, by the way, and I don't correct them. I don't have my PhD. Is that wrong that I don't correct them? No, I'm just kidding. She goes, it's tougher to say no over the phone. And think about that. So if you're asking for something, texting, you send me a text? No. Send me an email? No. If you call me on the phone and ask for something, I'm more likely to give it more thought and maybe say yes, because we're speaking and I can hear the passion, I can hear the persuasion in your voice. She also said, this was good, she goes, it's also easier to ask a stupid question on the phone. And she's right. If you send me an email with a stupid question, I'm going to forward it to every one of my friends. Kidding, but sometimes I have. But if you call me and you say, you know what, Paul, I've got a stupid question, what do we typically say? We typically say, no, there's no such thing as stupid questions. So pick up the phone. It's a differentiator. I tell my college students that, after an interview, you can send an email, you can text them if you want, pick up the phone because chances are no one else is doing it. I think in property management, we're all pretty good about using the phone, but think about whether you should send the email or be different and pick up the phone. Yeah, it's easier to pick up the phone and have a conversation, Cheryl. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on the phone? Again, it's below that blue line. It's a differentiator. Okay, it's going to get more fun from here. So, so my graphics person, she just added some new pictures. And so, what do you think about this dude in the picture with these two young women? What's his story? So, what do you think his story is? We're going to talk about face-to-face meetings now. What do you think about this guy? What's his story? What's he doing? I usually get some good responses here. What do you think? Do you like the guy? Is he up to something? Any thoughts on it? What do you think? I just love your thoughts. Okay, maybe as you're thinking about that, yeah, some people don't trust him. It's almost like he's trying to pull the wool over their eyes. Maybe they're signing something they shouldn't. Yeah, a little shady. Thanks, Logan. He's looking for an exit strategy. HR alert. I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, it looks like he's not paying attention for sure. So let me ask you a question. And so we live in a strange time right now. I mean, we're living these webinars. We're not meeting face to face. And I hope, and I can't wait until I can be in front of you personally, until I can get back in front of people. And I'm sure you're the same way. But do face-to-face meetings improve creativity? The answer is yes, absolutely. Here's a study. Studies show that 30% more ideas than virtual meetings like this. If we were together, all 84 of us, trying to brainstorm about something, it wouldn't be nearly as effective as if we were face-to-face. Duh, but studies confirm that. 50% more ideas than conference calls. How about this? One face-to-face meeting equals 5 video conferences. One face-to-face meeting is the same as 10 telephone calls. One face-to-face meeting is the same as 20 emails. Face-to-face meetings are so important. And I think, we're all zoomed out, right? I've talked to too many people who said, I'm just zoomed out. Students are zoomed out. Professionals were zoomed out. Frankly, I'm zoomed out. I'm a real interpersonal person. I got to be in front of people. I gotta hug people. You know what? And it's been very difficult. Interesting. I added this slide because face-to-face is, even when we're face-to-face with people, there's dynamics. And so wearing masks is strange. And what kind of expressions or do people really what they're thinking? It's easier when you can see their mouths when they smile. But of course, when we smile, the good smilers are the ones that they smile and you can see it in their eyes. But I understand the importance of masks, but I'll be happy when we can see people's faces again and really convey what we're trying to convey non-verbally without hiding behind these masks. So here's just something I saw in the New York Times, and I'll provide these slides to the BOMA Minneapolis folks so they can send these to you. But I don't know if you saw this one, that this is how you hug. Yes, there's ways to hug during the pandemic. I love a couple of them. Of course, don't hug someone who's coughing, right? I got that. Try not to cry while hugging. That's really difficult for me because during the lockdown here in Chicago, my daughter just lives in my community. And it was 3 months before I could hug her. And she's a young adult. Her husband had to go out of town. And so she had like a week where we were locked down, she was locked down, and she goes, Dad, I'm ready. And so she came over and we hugged each other, and it was like I dropped her off for college. That first time you drop your kids off at college and you cry. I mean, it was like that. So I violated this when it says don't cry. Hold your breath. I think that's pretty funny. So I have tried to hug people recently, like friends, and I say, okay, hold your breath, I'm coming in. Yeah. Just some tips for you. So maybe that's amusing to you, but some of them are probably good. So here's the slide that I want to get to. This is one of my favorite slides. Again, remember we're talking about our image, communicating our image. And how do we do that? And I think, again, these face-to-face meetings are so important. Dr. Edward Hallowell wrote a book about the human moment. And in the human moment, he says that for us to have a human moment with someone, 2 things are needed. First, we have to be physically present with someone, which is really difficult now, right? And then number two, we have to have an emotional or intellectual connection with them. So an example is when I was flying, when we were all flying, we would get into our seat and the person next to us would sit down. What's the first thing we would do? We'd put our ear pods in and, we pretend we're busy and we would be physically present with someone, but we really didn't have that intellectual or emotional connection because we both had our ear pods in. And if I'm being truthful with you, and maybe some of you are the same way, sometimes when I had the cord would go from my earphones into the seat pocket and it wouldn't even be connected to my phone. I wouldn't be listening to anything. I just didn't want to have a human moment with someone, which was wrong. I can give you stories in the early days before there were headphones, when I had conversations with people on planes that were enriching. And one of them actually changed the path, the direction of my career. And so to have these human moments is so important. So Dr. Hallowell says people who have human moments, who really take time to engage. So they're not texting, they're not sending the emails, they're meeting face to face, or they're not making the phone call. They're meeting face to face, and not only are they meeting face to face, but they're looking to dig a little deeper with that person and have a human moment. Dr. Hallowell says people who have human moments are happier, they're healthier, their marriages last longer by having these human moments. Let me ask you a question. What happens in an organization or at your building or your team when you don't have enough human moments? What are some of the bad things that can happen when you don't have human moments? What do you think? Could be your company, could be your team. What are some of the negative things that could happen without having these human moments? Miscommunication, Todd, absolutely, for sure. Silos go up, absolutely. Miscommunication, silos go, no culture. How do you have culture when we're all just being in our own little silo, our little world? And that's you're unmotivated. That's what I fear the most with these lockdowns, or with us not getting back to our buildings and interacting with our peers, with our tenants, with our teams. We lack these human moments, which I think they hurt us in a lot of different ways. Yeah, miscommunication again. What's the worst thing that can happen when a company or a team, or you don't have enough human moments with your tenants? What's the worst thing that could happen? What do you think? What do you think is the worst thing that could happen without human moments? Give it a shot. It creates distance. You lose trust. Oh, that's huge. Hey, Kip, I love that. Yeah, trust is so important. People become depressed, and for sure. Aaron, you got it. The team breaks apart. People leave organizations. People leave your team. Tenants leave your building if you don't have these human moments. And I'm going to take it just kind of one step farther. This is, no renewal, Pat, for sure. This is kind of a strange slide, so bear with me. If we're having these human moments, we're having these face-to-face meetings, will we allow people to help us as we go through our life, personally or professionally? If you have these human moments, I should tell you a quick story. I had a student, and he wanted to go to lunch with me. And I love going to lunch with my students to hear about their plans for the future. Maybe I can help them out, help them with their resume or an internship. So this young man outlined his 1-year plan, his 3-year plan, his 5-year plan. And I thought that was really cool. I'm like, wow, that's great. Admirable. Young person really knows where he wants to go. But then I started thinking about it. It was almost like he had it too planned. And so I gave him some advice. I said, you know what? This is a great plan, but allow people to knock you off your path. Have relationships with people where they can knock you off your path. Sometimes they'll confirm for you. You see the straight path here. Sometimes they'll confirm to you that you're on the right path. Stay there. But sometimes they'll say, why don't you veer to the right, Paul, or veer to the left? Because I think it might be more opportunity for you there. And when I've done this, sometimes it's panned out. Other times it really hasn't worked, and I go right back on my path. But then sometimes people will say, maybe, Paul, you need to make a left turn. You're heading down the wrong path. Make a left turn, make a right turn. Or you know what? You were much better doing what you were doing before. Make a U-turn. And so this is helpful advice. But then I went on to tell him, and I'm going to tell you this also, is that not only should we allow people to knock us off our path, we should seek people to knock us off our path. We should be intentional in asking people, hey, where do you think I'm going? Am I going the right direction? Or maybe, how about if I veer this way? What do you think about that? It's only by having these human moments that we can do that. Let me tell you something. People have been knocking me off my path since I started this new venture. And most of the time, it's been so good for me, healthy for me. It's led to more opportunities. And I keep thinking about this slide. So if you're on your path, and even if you think things are going in the right direction, or if you're considering making a change, have a face-to-face moment, have a human moment with someone and seek their advice. I think, one, they'll have more respect for you, knowing that they can help you out. And I think it'll keep you on the right path and get you maybe on some new paths that could indeed be life-changing. So any thoughts on that? I know it's tough if we're not face-to-face to get feedback about that, but I feel really strongly about face-to-face meetings. Anything else about that? Okay, thanks. Here's one. So I'm going to do another poll. So remember, texting, emailing, phone call, differentiator, right? Face-to-face meeting, it's a differentiator. People appreciate when you take the time to meet with them personally. You could have sent an email, you could have sent a text. And now, right over here, old school, I am so old school, personal notes. So here's the next poll, the last poll we're gonna do. And by the way, thanks for your participation. I really appreciate this. So the next poll is, do you write handwritten notes? Do you write handwritten notes personally or professionally? Yes or no? So if you wouldn't mind taking a second and answering the poll. Good, thanks. You guys are quick. I love this. So I never worry about the content of my seminars. I worry about the technology. In my class at Wheaton, I've got some people in class this quarter and then some people remote. And by the end of the 3-hour evening class, I mean, I just am exhausted. So you're all making this easy on me. Okay, let's go ahead and I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds, and then I'll close the poll. And I like what I see. I'm very pleased. So I'm gonna go ahead. Well, there's still a couple more people. All right, so let's end the poll. We're doing great. We have a few minutes left. Here's the results. So, oh, I should have shared the result. The results were, let me share the results again. 77% of you say that you write personal notes, and I think that's commendable. So for the 23% or the 16 or maybe the 77% that perhaps you don't write as many personal notes, let me encourage you to do that. So let me ask you, let me go ahead and get out of this for a second. Yeah, who do you write personal notes to? Give me just a couple seconds, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat room, chat box. Who do you write personal notes to? What do you think? Yeah, colleagues, your grandmother, thank you. Yeah, just thank you cards. Tenants and family, clients. So there was a family friend. You guys got it. This is good. If you're not writing personal notes, it's the old school thing to do. That'll make a huge impression about what people think about you and enhance your image. There's a senior person at a large real estate company. She runs the asset services for a large company, and I did a workshop for them. And we asked the same question, and then she raised her hand. She goes, I send personal notes. She goes, I send every Friday, I probably send 25 to 30 handwritten personal notes to my team, to clients, to vendors, to friends. And she was saying, giving the story, and then there were 2 or 3 other people in the room who reported to her, who raised their hands. They almost got emotional, saying, yeah, she sent me a personal note when I was going through this issue, or she sent me a personal note when I had done something well at my building and I didn't think anyone else noticed. And it was really impactful on me that sending these personal notes are so important. Yeah, Lisa, you print snapshots of previous outings and mail them to friends. Fantastic. So what do you do? What do you do when you receive a personal note? What do you do? What do you do with it? What do you do with personal notes that you receive? What do you think? You keep them for a while. You toss them. Come on, Adele. Goes up on my fridge, Emily says. Sometimes show it off, right? What we do we acknowledge them? Goes in a portfolio. You pick up, oh, I love that, Jim. You pick up the phone. So you got an old school, someone sent you an old school note, and then you pick up the phone. You're below that blue line. You're really interacting. You're having those human moments. We keep personal notes for the most part. We keep them. Texts, we delete the conversation. Emails, delete. Phone call, yeah, I remember that was a nice call. I remember that. Face-to-face meetings, yeah, we had a good meeting. Productive, it was great. Sending a personal note, we keep them. My family, we send cards to each other for birthdays as opposed to giving presents, and we send each other long, syrupy cards, and it's so much more important than any gift they could possibly send me. I've got a drawer in my bathroom that's got all the cards and notes, and like I said, it's a differentiator. It's absolutely a differentiator. It's an old school way. I tell my students, and I'll tell you this as we kind of end this portion of this, that those of you who understand the technology and have these old school communication skills will be lethal in our economy going forward now, especially now and going forward, because right now we're thirsting, we're hoping for these human moments as we rebound and recover, using your mantra. They'll be lethal. I tell my college students, if you can play both sides of this, people will like you. Your perception will be positive. You'll get hired, you'll get promoted. So if you do all of these things. Let's go ahead, and I think I have, let me make sure I can get to the next slide here. I'm not sure why it's not advancing. So let's talk about the power of our stories. So let me ask you a question. What do all these people have in mind as we finish up? We got just a couple minutes left. What do you think? What are they known for? What do they all have in common, I should say? I'll wait for a second. We have time. Greatness. Thanks, Anne. They're all known for some sort of greatness. They've got lots of dough, right? They're iconic. They showed determination, right? They all did something different that changed the world and changed the way people perceived them, right? Famous, wealthy, all positive things. I put Oprah Winfrey because people don't realize or remember that Oprah Winfrey was the first person to really change the way people did those daytime morning talk shows. She changed the face of that. She's known for other things that have made her a gazillionaire, but that's what she was known for. She changed things, and she's known for that. And again, all of them came from modest backgrounds, probably like most of us. And then how about this guy? Anybody know who this is? Who is this? Who is this? Kevin, do you know who this is?
Fosbury Flop.
It's Dick Fosbury. Thank you, Kev. Perfect timing. He was a high jumper. Yeah, Ryan. So before this picture, everyone in the world, not almost everyone in the world would go up to the high bar and go over it forward, until Dick Fosbury came along. Dick Fosbury, again, kind of not a famous person, modest upbringing. He decided that, let me see if I go over the high bar backward, if I could do it any better. Well, he tried it in practice, and he found that he can go over the high bar. He went over much higher, so much higher. And then he started to do it in competitions, and everyone started to follow. And to this day, no one goes over the high bar forward anymore. Everyone goes over backwards. So it just shows that we all have the opportunity for greatness. Maybe we won't change the world by what we do, but we can change other people's lives by communicating in a positive way. So kind of my final admonition to you, or my final hope for you, is what's your story? I want you to think about what your story is. Think about it every day. Think about, is your presence positive? Are you known for your presence? What are you known for? Are you someone people want to interact with? Are you someone that people really want to get to know? Really want to have a human moment with? And are you different? Try to be different. In my other workshops, we talk about we're all different, and to take advantage of the things that are indisputably different about all of us, because our differences can be really positive. And then you win if other people tell your story, like I just told Dick Fosbury's story. So when you do things positive, when you're known for this winning, this positive image, people will tell you your story. And if they tell your story, you win. You win. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin. I just want to say thank you. Thanks to BOMA Minneapolis for inviting me. It was supposed to be in person, but I appreciate the active participation. I'm glad you got some credit for this, and I look forward to seeing you at some point in the future in person. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin.
Great, thanks, Paul. And I really appreciate putting in a slide that only a few people would know what that is, including people my age. So I deeply appreciate it.
That was impressive. You had his first name too. Most people don't know his first name.
Well, and as we're going through all these changing times, and as we're all struggling within our companies to try to keep pace on what the new norm is, whatever that is, communicating is crucial. And whether it's going old school or developing new things that will make that line of communication better, we're all in for it. So we talked to Paul almost a year ago trying to put this together, and finally here we are. So thank you so much, Paul. It was a wonderful presentation in that regard. And I'd like to also make sure that our sponsors today, Clean Response and Metro Paving, thanks very much for your continued support at Clean Response and Metro. Great sponsors throughout. And thank you for joining us today. We'll look forward to our next meeting, which is October 22nd. Remember, it's the election one, so it's going to be a very interesting one. For that, thank you all very much. Thanks, Paul, and we'll see you down the road, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.